I kept putting off doing this reaction because I was seeing a lot of the conversation in the background, and there was a lot of talk about violence and anger and different things like that, and I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to relate to that, but I'm so glad I did. This is very much my reaction. This is how I react to different things. Previously, I've liked to do things the right way. I've played the video, and then you've seen my face, and it's the reaction as everybody has expected it. But I have chosen myself, which is a clue to one of the phrases that jumps out later. I've chosen myself, and I've said, no, I'm going to do it my way. This is the way I typically consume content, is that yes, I can watch something. I filmed it. The most interesting thing that happens to my face, I shall show you a quick clip now.
Do it for the thrill. Blue lights, boy, come on. Blue lights, boy, chill.
And then we move on. And now the whole reaction, that part of the thing where I'm listening to the original and you can see my reaction. If you're interested in sort of micro expressions as I'm watching it, I'm going to put that at the end. My genuine reaction would be that I would make pages of notes, and then particular words I would look up and say, define this word. And I'd want to read what the actual definition, like a dictionary definition, is of the word. And then there'll be a phrase and it jumps out at me and I'm like, what does that mean? Could it be misunderstood? And will I remember that to use it myself? That's how I react to creative pieces of work. So that's what I'm going to be talking about now. The first thing that I wrote down was about the setup. I think what's important is how I felt going into this. Now, I knew about the tales, but I don't know a ton of Ren's work, and there was a lot of talk about clues and connecting to other pieces of work, so I kind of felt out of it. So before I started watching this, I got excited about the idea of minstrels, and I thought, I'm not sure that I'm using the right word here, so I went and looked it up. And yes, minstrels were storytellers, and particularly this idea of telling tales and connecting that with music and travelling around. And then I started wondering, well, when did that trend and that fashion die out? Well, that died out when the cities got bigger and they were employed by people and they could stay in one location, because what happens is they were no longer independent. So the stories that they were telling were then influenced by the people paying the bills, which I thought was interesting, considering that Ren likes to be independent and create and talk about things that he wants to talk about. So have that in mind. As I'm watching all of this, I'm thinking about minstrels and storytelling and being independent and different things like that. There was one other thing as well that I was researching before I hit play, and that is, I'm sure in the past I've heard Ren talk about this linking drama and storytelling and music, but I think what I heard him say, one of his influences was a TV series in the UK called Tales of the Unexpected, written by Roald Dahl. Now, I didn't know it was written by Roald Dahl. I heard of Tales of the Unexpected, and from a child remember it as being horror. But when I researched it, I encouraged the rabbit hole there. When I researched it, they were talking about it being horror plus comedy, not slapstick comedy, but kind of a lightness of language. And I thought, oh, I think I see some of that. And there was definitely points. So I'm hitting play on this particular piece of work. I'm thinking about the minstrels. I'm thinking about Tales of the Unexpected. I'm wondering if there's going to be comedy and horror kind of put together. I'm also a little bit scared of, am I just going to hear anger and violence and not connect to anything else? Relatability. He's in the bar. He's alone. He's drinking. All of this reaction, by the way, I'm going to try and do it chronologically so you can follow me. I'm pretty sure that you know this song and you know the video. He's in the bar, he's alone, and he's planting seeds of this is everyday life, and there's sort of a frustration and a boredom. And what I thought was interesting to me is that I related to that. I don't really relate to being angry and acting out or getting drunk all the time, but I do relate to that sense of, I hate my job. I hate it. And the idea that you would sit somewhere and it would be on repeat, doing the same thing the next day and the next day. and just hating it and the position in life and not really knowing what else that you could do. And that really surprised me because, like I say, I thought the story was going to be about anger and violence, which it is later. But I think planting that seed for me right at the beginning made it super relatable. So this is when he leaves the bar and he's wobbling about and he takes the guitar off the Vincent character. This is when he leaves the bar, and next he leaves the bar, and this is, I'm also talking about, next he leaves the bar, and next thing you know, he's taken the guitar off the Vincent character, and it starts to tell the story. And I thought, I loved this bit, and I think when you watch the reaction, you can see a little twinkle in my eyes, in the music and the scene setting. It was so funny because when I came to do this video, I thought, I'm going to sing those few notes. I'm going to remember how to do it. And I started kind of playing back a little tune in my head. And before you knew it, or before I knew it, I was singing Chim Chim Cheree from Mary Poppins. So I went down another rabbit hole of that one. And that's, dum, da, da. You could hear that. I'm going to tell a story now. Scene setting. Oh, I just loved it. Anyway, searched at the words for those. That was, I'm on the bottom of the rung. When you look at me in terms of society, I'm at the bottom, but I'm a lucky chap and I'm happy and moving forward like that. But for me, the fun of seeing somebody's creative work is all of these little digressions that I go on, and then I'm like, oh, that makes me think of that song. Why does it make me think of that song? What's happening in terms of that scene setting and that creativity? Now, I don't think I'm going to be writing songs. For me, it's the storytelling side of things, and I love that I'm finding those different connections, and then there's going to be even more. Moving on to the character development next. Ren is both the narrator and he's embodying Vincent at different times. And sometimes I can be so swept up by a story, I don't necessarily notice what's happening. But I did notice in this, particularly at one point where he stops and then the light is on him and then he's the narrator again. And then the light goes and then he's back to being angry and drunk and different things like that. I think, what do they call it? Exposition in a exposition in a storytelling movie type of way. And as I say, I struggle with that. I get so swept up in the story that I can't always spot the structural elements of how to make that work for myself. And so for me, all these little details I was finding really interesting. The next thing he says is about these boring songs. And again, I'm relating to this in that when I'm watching YouTube, there can be a feeling sometimes of, this is scripted, this is AI writing stuff, this is not a human being making odd, weird connections and creativity. Some of it is boring or painful, or sometimes you feel manipulated in that, crikey, they just see me as a person, that they're putting me into this funnel where I'm supposed to buy something at the end of it all. So again, I was relating to the Vincent character, the frustration, the everyday, I'm fed up with that kind of thing, and it's just so boring, and I didn't expect to relate to that. Certainly later, that pays off, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. Next, we start looking at the language. Now, language is kind of my thing. I've been obsessed with being misunderstood for decades, where I've been trying to express myself more clearly and speak more clearly so that people will understand, and it's what a waste of time. There was a few lines that particularly jumped out at me, and I thought, I'm going to go and do a deep dive on this. Please feel free to jump if you want to in terms of the conclusion, whatever. But this is the best bit. This is the best bit. Right to be violent when you fed me lies. Now, again, I have chronic fatigue. I speak in some of the videos that I do about sometimes wishing that I was naive again. There's things that I've found out since being ill and dealing with the medical profession. and attempting to stand up for myself in other situations. And I definitely felt like I've been lied to. Should we say no more? Yeah. And there's been times when I wished I could be that naive person again that believed authority. So again, who am I to relate to Vincent? I shouldn't be relating to Vincent, but these are all seeds which I think are more everyday and common than the reaction that he chooses to have from those particular issues that are going on for him. Again, I surprised myself with how much empathy I had for him. He seems to accept the rotter label. Now, I've never been labelled anything like that. In fact, the opposite. I'm kind of the good girl, and I've found it really hard to push back and to have boundaries in terms of saying what I want or what I don't want in terms of the good girl label. So I don't know that rotter label, but I do relate to the resignation of that's just the way it is. And then he says about being barely alive, which I haven't heard those two words put together. I haven't heard that as an expression, but for me it was so emotive and created that particular emotion. And yes. I got more notes for you. He says the word destroy. But he says destroy, and I've written it in capitals here. He says destroy. And I couldn't help but think about a song from Hamilton called It's Quiet Uptown, where one of the words that they say is forgiveness. And I remember when I heard that song thinking, that's a little bit out of place. Why are they saying that word? I don't know, it almost felt like pointing out the obvious. And it's clearly the theme of the song. Well, I heard somebody talk about this particular song afterwards, and they were saying it's the theme of the song. And I also felt very similarly that this destroy and, just sort of knock everything down, destroy, it felt the same, that it didn't need to be said. It was a choice to make it really plain. This is the theme. This is that overriding statement where we're probably picking up on that sense, but it's going to be spelt out and he's going to be super clear about it. Let me just have a look. There's 4 different phrases, but one of them I really did a deep dive. Again, you can feel free to jump ahead. If you have no intellectual curiosity whatsoever, jump ahead. The first one, getting wasted is my truth. I have never got drunk as a regular thing, as a coping mechanism, and I gave up alcohol 20 years ago, so but he emphasized this. And for me, sometimes when I'm listening to somebody, especially somebody being expressive, and when I did the interviews, this is the same. I remember somebody mentioning the word gremlin, and then they kept using this word. Was it gremlin or goblin or something like that? And I was thinking, this means something to them that seems to be passing over the top of my head. And I stopped to ask the question. And I think this getting wasted is my truth. And the emphasis that he put on that, he seems to have a different understanding of that I don't have. And I think if I was interviewing, that's the one thing that I would want to know a little bit more about in terms of what is that feeling, what's happening there. The second one is the pill that makes you sick. Love that kind of, I don't know. There's a word for this, isn't there? Where it's inevitable. The poetic, the way that the phrase is structured, and that you look back on it and it's almost that sense of it's inevitable that it's going to end with that, the pill that makes you sick. I loved that. And then number 3, oh boy, did I fall hard down the rabbit hole for this one. Victim of the victimless. Now, I didn't get it, don't completely get it still. Went down the rabbit hole to try and find out more. The same thing happened when I listened to Brené Brown talk about vulnerability. Loved it, but had this sense of there's more here. It means more. I understand the words on a surface level, but I think there's more of a meaning here. I think there's more meat to it. And victim of the victim, it wasn't a phrase that I would use, and it wasn't a phrase that I thought that I would particularly remember, but I think there's so much meaning here that I have to do a deep dive. 4 different possible interpretations, which makes it even... Sorry, I'm getting all excited now. Makes it even better for me. Remember, I'm somebody who's obsessed with being understood and avoiding misunderstanding. So the fact that there can be 4 different interpretations of victim of the victimless is just fantastic. Number 1, I'm reading it. Sorry, I'm going to look down. Self-inflicted wound interpretation. Your own action or in victim of the victimless. Number 2, systemic interpretation, harmed by impersonal forces. And then number 3, isolation interpretation, absence of connection, harmed by indifference, neglect, not active malice. And number 4, circular victimization interpretation, harmed by other victims, and it's a cycle of going round. The self-inflicted wound particularly jumped out at me. This is about your own action or inaction, because this is the 4th sentence that... Remember, I had 4 different interpretations of victim of the victimless, but there was 4 deep dive phrases, and the 4th one was someone never chosen. And again, this is something that keeps coming up in the interviews and the different things that I'm doing. I seem to be fascinated with the hero's journey and the moment where the hero chooses to go on the adventure, and that giving yourself permission. And I seem to be, every time I speak to somebody, I'm asking them about that. And then immediately after watching this video, I heard somebody talking about tall poppy syndrome and being told you can do anything as a child, but then you have this situation where you may be cut down. And I thought there's something more. Just like I felt about victim of the victimless, I thought there's something more to not being chosen, to the idea of giving yourself permission, to this problem of the tall poppy syndrome. So I suspect this is what I'm going to go create next. It's either going to be minstrels, isn't it? Or it's going to be about this permission, tall poppy, that sense of feeling that he wasn't chosen. Someone never chosen. And there's a sadness about this someone never chosen, because I may feel that things have been difficult in terms of career and opportunities like that, but I have definitely been chosen. As a child, I have definitely been chosen and been a favourite in different situations. And so that sense of someone never chosen really feels quite sad, that you feel like nobody's been on their side, not as a child, not as anything. So for me, that was really moving. Okay, we've done a deep dive on all these different language things. Next, about the visual and the narrative. We're moving on now, I think, where there's the street fight. I love the bit where he goes, the rules of the street fight are simple, and then he explains the rules of the street fight. But again, I'm sneaking in this kind of this minstrel storytelling and this lightness, where it's not comedy, is it? But there's a lightness and a bounce to it, and then you've got the horror that comes up next, and then you have the fight, and the camera follows immediately afterwards, and it sort of tips upside down. And I remember thinking, first of all, it almost felt like the spirit of the person that had been attacked following after the Vincent character. And then I thought, oh no, maybe the world is turning upside down, and all these different sensations. And I saw, what was it, the Friends meeting house? That's the Quakers that are anti-violence. That was at the end of the alley. And then he sits down and he goes into the narrator mode again. And this for me is musically my favourite moment, the "and so it goes." And it's like, okay, this is where we're at. And so it goes. This is this part of the story. And so it goes. We move to the end of the reaction, this is how I naturally react to creative work, rather than being the whole facial expressions. But you can see that next. Naturally, what I do when I see amazing work like this is I want to know the influences, and I want to make mad connections about Mary Poppins and Tales of the Unexpected and Hamilton and Tall Poppy and all these different things. To me, that feeds me and that makes me want to go and make something later. You've probably heard of Austin Kleon, and he talks about steal like an artist. And he's not saying steal or take anything. He's saying take the influences and make the connections and then get excited and go want to make something yourself. So that's what I thought. I'm going to share that with you. This is what my reactions normally are. Pages of notes. Pages of notes. So if you want to watch the traditional type of reaction, that's at the end just now. But in the meantime, thank you, Ren. Thank you, the whole team, for this amazing piece of work. Thank you for feeding me in my creativity. It's very exciting. I was not expecting to relate and to enjoy it as much as I did, and so I was completely blown away. I can see me going off down many rabbit holes later, and I choose myself. I'm not waiting for anybody. I choose myself. I'm going to take all these influences, and then I'm going to go make something. I'm not waiting for permission. That's what I'm going to do. Bye.
Come on, let's have it, you miserable. I will do what I want. I will drink till I'm sick to my stomach. I'm sick of the same boring songs. I am sick of these pavements I find myself on. Great Britain, I hate you all. Say that with pride is my right. A menace when I want to be in the work for that right, because nothing comes free. I have slaved all my life in the dull 9 to 5. I just rinse and repeat while I'm barely alive. Great Britain, I loathe you with G. What you've done to destroy. I want to tear apart these buildings from the cinder blocks they stand. Leave this town in dust and rubble. Make some trouble with my hands. I won't lie, I'm fucking wasted. But I wasted all my youth. Placing, getting wasted is my truth. So my style of self-expression is a fist into the gut. It's throwing up upon these pavements. Shut your fucking mouth, you slut banished angel. I am Lucifer, my name. I am the storm after the calm. I'm the victim of the victim list. The pill that makes you sick. I am chaos inc. Let's fucking have it then, you prick. Now the rules of the street fight are simple. It's pretty much anything goes. Keeping the street pretty firm on your feet. It pays to be sweet on your toes. And fools they have fallen for clumsy mistakes. Late to react, cop the fist to the face. Now the rules of the street fight are simple. Break that little prick's nose. Throw a punch, you swallow it, follow it, grab the collar, quick hollow tip like karate. Kick martial art master, spark a fist on the landing, trick carnage. It finds a cartilage, karma's up like a carbonated cola on the crucifix kill. Vincent wanna kill, blood gets spilled. Move double that rude boy, kill or be killed. Do it for the fun, blood, do it for the thrill. Blue lights, boy, run, blue lights, boy, chill. In the absence of the light, the devil's son, Vincent was shaken. Run from the law, hide from the bacon. Crouch on the floor, the cop. He hears the sound of a copper, harp on his tail proper. Vincent off his rocker, bothered by the lie that Britain sold him. What a shocker. Where greedy eat the poor, a holy war, the chosen prosper. But some are never chosen, they stay frozen in the locker. Destined to survive in 9 to 5 and watch the clock, but don't think about reality, my little happy shopper. A brand new show on Netflix to distract you from the horror. And swallow all your morals for a retweet or a follow. And shadow ban the problem man, a soul for $1. And keep the fight amongst yourself, don't think about the squalor. The systems that impose it, or the rules that we all honour. And fuck it, Vincent cooked to boiling point, he's cannon fodder. So what's the use in running, he's already in the locker. He's careless with his actions now, a clumsy motherfucker. He turned to face his fate, cause fate's a bitch, and none will stop her. Richard was an officer who stood there 6'3". Was his first day back at work after a time of absent leave. Working London on the night shift what he didn't think he'd see was a boy with a guitar, bruised and battered on his knees. But Richard lived in caution now, tormented by his past. Not so quick to find a trigger, not so fast. But Richard was a righteous man who lived inside the law. So he leapt upon poor Vincent and he cuffed him to the floor.
Oh.